Hello, my name is Satbir Singh Malli. Today I will be delivering a lecture on quotient rule. Quotient rule is a formula of calculating the derivative of a quotient of two functions. Let's look at the formula. So if you have a function fx over gx, which is a quotient of two functions, fx is in the numerator and gx function is in the denominator, then the derivative of this quotient is found by using this formula, which states that you multiply the bottom function gx times the derivative of the top function f prime of x. You subtract from the product of the top function f of x times the derivative of the bottom function g of x, and then you divide the whole entire thing by the bottom function, the square of the bottom function, which is a gx square. This formula may be a little hard to memorize. Maybe this little chanting will help you to memorize this formula, which is low d high. Low means the bottom function, high means the top function. So we will read it as low d high minus high d low divided by low low. So let's translate this chanting into the formula. So if you have a quotient fx over gx, first things you will do that you will calculate the derivative of the top function, which is f prime of x, and then you calculate the derivative of the bottom function, which is a g prime of x, and then you will read that poem which say low d high means you take the low function multiplied to the high function and you put it in the denominator. Then you read the next line which say high d low, and you subtract from the first term. So this is a minus high f of x times the derivative of the low function. And then you divide whole entire things by low low, which is a bottom function, the low low times gx, which is gx times the gx, the square of gx. Let's practice this rule with some examples. So my first example is x square plus 1 divided by the square root of x. So function is x square plus 1 divided by x to the power 1 half. So the square root of x can be written as x to the power 1 half. First I will calculate the derivative of the top, which is equal to 2x plus 0, because the derivative of 1 is 0, and it is a divide by 1 half x to the power minus 1 half. I use the power rule here, so you drop the power and then you take 1 from the power. 1 half minus 1 is minus 1 half, and then we will read that and chant. We say low d high, so you multiply low to high, which is the x to the power 1 half time high. The derivative of high is a 2x, and there is a negative sign, so there is a subtraction sign, and then you read high d low. So high is x square plus 1, the derivative of low is 1 half x to the power minus 1 half. This is going to be x square plus 1 times 1 half x to the power minus 1 half. And then the whole entire thing is a divide by low low, which is the bottom function, x to the power 1 half time x to the power 1 half, low low, or you can say x to the power 1 half, the square of that. Let's simplify this a little bit. This is equal to 2. This is a x. This is the square root of x. And this function x square plus 1 can be written as 2 times x to the power 1 half. Because the exponent is a negative, I can move that exponent in the denominator. And the whole entire thing is divided by x to the power 1 half, x to the power 1 half. This will become x. Because if the base are same, the exponent will add 1 half plus 1 half is 1. So here we have a quotient, and here is also a quotient if I divide it by 1. In order to add or subtract these two functions, we have to have a same denominator. So what we will do first, we will make the same denominator so we can subtract these two functions. So denominator of this function is a 2x to the power 1/2 here, and denominator is 1. So what I will do is basically I will multiply this by 2x to the power 1/2 here, and also I have to multiply 2x to the power 1/2 in the top. And then this will turn into the top, the denominator will turn into 2 times x, and x to the power 1/2, x to the power 1/2 become x, and then there is negative sign here, and then this is x square plus 1, and the whole entire thing is divided by 2x to the power 1/2 divided by x. And then this, the next line, this will become this will become 4. So this will become 4x square minus x square minus 1. Entire thing is divided by 2 times x to the power 1/2. Because that is in the denominator x, so it will multiply by 1 over x to that quotient. So this will become 3x square minus 1. Whole entire thing is divided by 2x square root of x. So this is your final answer of this problem. So let's look at one more time to the solutions, how we calculate it. So I calculated the derivative of the top function, which is the 2x, and then the derivative of the bottom function was 1/2 x to the power negative 1/2. And then I read that chanting low d high and high d low, and I put it over there. So low multiply to the high derivative of the high function multiply the derivative of the low function, and then the divide by low, which is basically the square of the denominator function. And if I simplify, which I did in the few minutes ago, and this whole entire thing will turn into 3x square minus 1 divided by 2x square root of x. Okay, now I have a few more examples here which you can practice. So I will suggest that you stop a video here and practice on these few rules, on these few examples, that quotient rule. So I will work on this problem number 3. You can find a friend or your, anyone who can help you with that and practice with these problem with them. So let's 3 is the function is x to the power 1/2 divided by x cube plus 3x plus 1. This is our function in 3. I will take the derivative of the top function first, which is going to be a 1/2 x to the power minus 1/2. And then I will take the derivative of the bottom function, which is a 3x to the power square plus 3, plus the derivative of 1 is 0, which I will not write it down. And then the derivative of the quotient of this quotient will be by chanting that line which says the low d high, you multiply low to the high and then you subtract from high to low. So it's going to be now 3x to the power 3 plus 3x plus 1. This is a low function. Low d high, derivative of high is a 1/2 x to the power negative 1/2. And then you put a subtraction sign, so minus, then high x to the power 1/2 is a high function, multiply to the derivative of the low function, which is a 3x square plus 3. And whole entire thing will be divided by low square, which is a 3x to the power 3 plus 3x plus 1, and the square of that. So this is your final answer. You may not have to simplify, but if you want, you're welcome to do that. But this is enough for that problem. Okay, let's move to the next slide. In the next slide, we have an iClicker question. Again, you can pause this video for a minute or two and take this question. And if you have any questions, you can send me an email or comment on the bottom. I will explain that one. Okay, the next question is, in this problem, I did not give you the function. Instead, I have give you the value of the function and its derivative at some specific point. And we will ask to compute what is the derivative of the function h prime of x, where h of x is a quotient of fx and gx function. So our h of x is f of x divided by g of x. So the first things we will do that we're going to compute what is h prime of x. So since h of function is a quotient, I will use the quotient rule. So I have a function fx divided by gx. I will calculate the derivative of the top function and write f prime of x. Calculate the derivative of the bottom function, I have g prime of x. And then read that poem which say low d high minus high d low. And I will write it down here. Low function is a g of x multiplied by the high derivative of the high function f of x minus f of x, which is the high function, multiplied with the derivative of the low function g of x, and whole entire thing is divided by low, which is a g of x and the square of that function. So now what I need to do is I need to plug, because I need to calculate the derivative at 1. So I will plug or replace x by 1. So if I do that, I'm gonna get g at 1, then g prime at 1, and f at 1, and f g prime at 1 divided by g at 1, the square of that. So I have the values of g at 1, f prime at 1 from in this table, and then I will plug all these values here and calculate my final answer. So what is a g at 1? That is a 4. What is f prime at 1, which is a -3. Then there's a negative sign. F at 1 is a -2. And g prime at 1 is a 1. And the whole entire thing is divided by g at 1 square, which is a 16, I believe. And therefore, this will be -12. And minus +2, so it's going to be -10 divided by 16, which is a 5,4, -5,4. So let's take this problem again. So the derivative of g prime of x is given by this formula, which is a low d high minus high d low divided by low. And I replace x by 1, and then basically calculate this this math, and I get -5/8. Let's do one more question in this problem. My h of function is now 1 plus gx divided by 1 minus fx. And again, since this is a quotient, I will use the quotient rule. The derivative of the top is g prime of x, and the derivative of the bottom is minus f prime of x. And then I will read that poem, low d high minus high d low. So what will be the derivative of h prime of x from this formula? It will be 1 minus f of x, which is a low function. We're going to multiply to the high function g prime of x. And then minus high function is a 1 plus gx times the derivative of the low function f prime of x. And whole entire thing is divided by low function 1 minus f of x, the square of that. Which is basically this. And now, since I need to compute h prime at 1, so I will replace x by 1 in my formulas and then do these calculations. So this, when I calculate this thing, is turned out to be -4/3. You should verify this calculation by yourself. Okay, let's do one more application of this rule. In this question, we ask to find what is the tangent line of the at the function which is x square e to the power x plus 1 at x is equal to 1. The first things we need to do, the solution, first we need to find the point. So we have given the x component of the point, and in order to compute the y component, what we do, we're gonna plug that exponent into the function. So if I do that, what is the function? Function is x square. It means 1 square divided by e to the power 1 is e to e time 1 is again e. So this gives me 1 over 2e. Okay, so I find the point because what we need to do now, we need to find the equation of the tangent line at this point. At this point 1 over e to the power x. In order to find equation of a line, we need to find the slope also. So let's calculate the slope. So we can calculate the slope from the derivative of the function. So what first we need to do is we need to calculate what is the f prime of x. Since our function is a quotient of x square e to the power x plus e x, so we will use the quotient rule. So what the quotient rule is, you calculate the derivative of the top, which is a 2x. You calculate the derivative of the bottom, which is a e to the power x. Derivative of e to the power x is e to the power x. Then e time is a constant time multiplied to a function x, and the derivative of that function x is a 1, so its derivative is going to be just e. And then we read that poem, we say the low d high minus high d low. So the derivative of this function is low d high, which is e to the power x plus ex, that's the low function, multiply to the derivative of the high function, which is a 2x, minus high function, which is a x square times the derivative of the low function, e to the power x plus e. And whole entire thing is divided by low square, which is e to the power x plus ex and the square of that function. Next is the slope is the derivative of the function at the x value. So x value is 1, so we'll plug 1 into the derivative of the function, and that quantity will give us the slope of the tangent line. So if I replace x by 1, it's going to be e times e plus e times 2 minus 1 square is a 1. It's going to be e plus e here too. And then this is a divide by e plus e, the square of that. And let's do simplification. This is a 2. This is a 4e. This is a minus 2e divided by 2e square, which is a 4 the square of it. Therefore, the top is 2e, bottom is 4e square, therefore 1 over 2. So that's the slope of the tangent line. So what is the equation of a line? Y is equal to mx plus b. Y is equal to slope is 1 over 2ex plus b. Now we need to calculate the b. Since we know that this line is passes through this point 1 over 2e, this point will gives you y is a 2e is equal to 1 over 2e when x is a 1 plus b. So from here you will calculate b is your 0 because they will cancel out. So therefore your equation of the line is the equation of the tangent line is y is equal to 1 half e 1 over 2e x plus 0. So that's not right. Okay, so this is the end of this is the end of this lecture. Um, um, Thank you very much for watching, and next time I will come up with another lecture on the derivative of the trigonometric function. Thank you. See you soon. Bye bye.